The specimen acquisition was a complete success, Commander Vex, reported Science Officer Draz, his 4 eyes blinking in asynchronous patterns of excitement. We have captured a human female. Initial scans indicate she possesses standard human biological attributes with no apparent augmentations. Commander Vex swiveled his elongated head toward the view screen, mandibles clicking with satisfaction. The Zarn Collective had been studying humans from afar for decades, but this would be their first direct examination of a live specimen. And the timing couldn't be better. The Galactic Council was voting next cycle on whether to admit Earth to the interstellar community or to mark it for resource harvesting. Excellent work, Science Officer. Where did you acquire the specimen? Vex ran a clawed appendage over the smooth surface of his command console, a remote location called Afghanistan. The human was isolated from its pack when our tractor beam locked on. No witnesses. Perfect. Vex's lipless mouth stretched into what passed for a smile among the Zarn. Is the specimen conscious? Not yet, Commander. We administered standard sedation protocols. The human should awaken in approximately 20 minutes. Vex stood from his command chair, towering nearly 8 feet tall. His exoskeleton gleamed under the ship's ambient lighting. I will personally oversee the initial examination. The Council expects our report within 3 rotations. As Vex made his way toward the specimen containment area, he mentally rehearsed the tests they would conduct. Humans were physically unimpressive, fragile bones, minimal natural armor, no claws or venom, but they had somehow managed to become the dominant species on their planet. Understanding their psychology might reveal hidden strengths. The containment cell was a cube roughly 15 feet on each side, with transparent barriers allowing observation from all angles. In the center, a human female lay on an examination platform, still unconscious. She wore some kind of uniform with patches and insignia that the ship's computer was currently analyzing. What do we know about this one? Vex asked as Science Officer Draz joined him. The garments suggest a military function. The translator is still processing their written language, but preliminary analysis indicates medical training. A healer? Interesting choice. Healers often possess extensive knowledge of human physiology, Draz explained, and they are typically less aggressive than combat units. Less aggressive is good, Vex muttered. Remember what happened to the Krell research vessel? Both aliens shuddered. The Krell had made the mistake of abducting a human male from something called a Marine Corps. Only one Krell had survived to report back, babbling about improvised weapons and terrifying ingenuity. The survivor had subsequently requested reassignment to the Outer Rim colonization fleet. This one will be perfectly manageable, Draz assured his commander. The restraints are rated for species 3 times stronger than humans. A soft groan emanated from the containment cell. The human was waking up. Record everything, Vex ordered, activating the observation protocols. Lieutenant Maya Patel blinked groggily as consciousness returned. Her head pounded with the mother of all migraines, and her mouth felt like she'd been gargling sand. The last thing she remembered was heading back to base after treating civilians at the remote village outpost. Then there had been a light impossibly bright and a sensation of being lifted. What the hell? She mumbled, trying to sit up. Immediately, she realized she was restrained. Her combat training kicked in, and she quickly assessed her situation while pretending to remain disoriented. Surroundings sterile, controlled environment, not a standard military or civilian facility. Restraints, unknown material, flexible but seemingly unbreakable. Physical condition, no apparent injuries beyond possible drugging, and then she saw them. 2 creatures straight out of a sci-fi nightmare stood watching her from beyond a transparent wall. One was massive with an insectoid appearance, while the smaller one had 4 independently moving eyes that seemed to be taking notes on some kind of holographic display. Well, this is just perfect, Maya said aloud, her voice dripping with sarcasm. I survived 3 tours in active combat zones just to get abducted by the cast of Bug's Life, the horror edition. The creatures exchanged looks. The taller one spoke, its mandibles clicking oddly. Surprisingly, she understood the words. Human, you have been selected for scientific examination. Your cooperation will make this process painless. I bet you say that to all the girls you kidnap, Maya replied, tugging experimentally at her restraints. Has this approach ever actually worked for you? The smaller alien tilted its head. The specimen displays typical human humor responses to stress. Note the sarcastic tone and defensive verbal posturing. I'm right here, 4 eyes. And I'm Lieutenant Maya Patel, not the specimen. Combat Medic, U.S. Army. The taller alien stepped closer to the barrier. I am Commander Vex of the Zarn Collective. You have been chosen to represent your species in our study. Lucky me. Did you consider, I don't know, asking before snatching people off their planet? Your species has not yet been granted communication privileges by the Galactic Council, Vex explained, as if talking to a child. Primitive civilizations must be studied before contact protocols can be established. Maya laughed. A short, sharp sound without humor. So you're telling me there's an actual galactic federation out there, with space bureaucracy? Fantastic. Science Officer Draz seemed excited by this interaction. Commander, the specimen demonstrates advanced comprehension. Most species require several cycles to process first contact scenarios. That's because most humans have seen this movie before, Maya retorted. Alien abduction is practically a genre back home. Though usually the aliens are less, she paused, examining their bizarre physiognomy. Chitinous. Commander Vex appeared to consult something on his wrist device. Our cultural database indicates human entertainment media often portrays interspecies contact. Interesting that your fiction prepared you for reality. Yeah, we're full of surprises. Maya continued subtly testing her restraints. Speaking of surprises, you might want to know I'm about 3 seconds away from throwing up whatever you drugged me with all over your nice clean floor. This caused immediate consternation. Draz rapidly manipulated controls, and a small receptacle extended from the wall near Maya's head. The nausea is a common side effect of molecular transportation, Draz explained. It will pass shortly. Stay. Great bedside manner, Doc, Maya grimaced. You're almost as good as our battalion surgeon, and he once told a guy with a compound fracture to walk it off. Commander Vex moved closer to the transparent barrier. Lieutenant Patel, your cooperation would be beneficial. We simply wish to understand humans better. And I simply wish to be back on Earth. Looks like we're both disappointed. She took a deep breath as the nausea actually did begin to subside. How about this, you release me? Take me home. And I don't report your little unauthorized house call to my commanding officer. That will not be possible, Vex stated flatly. However, your stay will be temporary, once our examinations are complete. Examinations? Maya interrupted. Sorry, that's going to be a hard no from me. Draz blinked his 4 eyes in rapid succession. The procedures are non-invasive by Zarn standards. Somehow that's not reassuring coming from a species that probably lays eggs in its food. Commander Vex made a sound that might have been a sigh. Science Officer, prepare the first phase of testing. Perhaps the human will be more cooperative after observing our technological superiority. As Draz scuttled away, Maya cataloged everything she could about their technology, their movements, and the layout of what she could see beyond her cell. 3 years of combat medicine in high-stress environments had trained her to notice details others might miss. The restraints, for instance, were attached to the platform at junction points that seemed to be electromagnetically controlled. The transparent barrier had a slight distortion pattern that suggested it might be energy-based rather than solid. And Commander Vex's wrist device appeared to control multiple ship functions, including her restraints. So, Commander, Maya said casually, is kidnapping random people standard procedure for the Zarn Collective, or am I just special? Your selection was not random. Vex replied. We identified you as a medical professional with military training. Your knowledge makes you an ideal representative of human adaptability. You picked me because you thought a medic would be easy to handle. Maya translated, less likely to cause trouble than, say, infantry. Previous experiences with human military personnel have been problematic. Maya couldn't help but grin. Let me guess you grabbed someone from Special Forces and things went sideways? Vex's mandibles twitched uncomfortably. The Krell incident is not relevant to our current research. It absolutely is relevant to my current situation, Maya countered. Look, here's what you don't understand about combat medics. We're trained to fight and heal. I've treated gunshot wounds while under fire, performed emergency surgery with improvised tools, and once took down an insurgent using only a thigh tourniquet and my boot knife. As she spoke, Maya noticed a slight fluctuation in the energy barrier whenever Vex moved closer to it. Interesting. Your combat capabilities are irrelevant while restrained, Vex noted, though he did take a step back from the barrier. Science Officer Draz returned, pushing a floating platform of equipment. Commander, the first testing module is ready. Maya watched as Draz activated a device that extended a scanning arm toward the ceiling of her cell. It began emitting a soft blue light that swept across her body. This is merely analyzing your biological composition, Draz explained. It causes no discomfort. That's what my drill sergeant said about 20-mile marches, Maya replied dryly. She remained still, allowing the scan while continuing to observe. So, what exactly are you looking for? We are assessing human resilience, adaptability, and cognitive function, Commander Vex stated. The Galactic Council requires comprehensive species profiles before new civilizations can be categorized. Categorized as what? Either as potential allies worthy of contact, or as resource worlds suitable for harvesting. Maya's blood ran cold. Harvesting? As in planetary resources, mineral extraction, atmospheric processing, Draz clarified, manipulating controls on his device. Some less advanced species are relocated to reservation territories. And who decides whether we're advanced enough? Commander Vex's expression was unreadable. The Council evaluates based on technological development, cultural maturity, and behavioral predictability. Behavioral predictability? Maya repeated. You mean how well we follow orders from more powerful species? Essentially, yes. Maya laughed again, this time with genuine amusement. Then you really did kidnap the wrong human. Following orders isn't exactly our specialty as a species, particularly not orders from uninvited guests. The scanning device completed its pass and retracted into the ceiling. Draz studied the results with obvious excitement. Fascinating. Commander, the human displays remarkable cellular regeneration capabilities for a carbon-based species. Their immune response mechanisms are quite sophisticated. That's what happens when you evolve on a planet trying to kill you with everything from microbes to megafauna, Maya commented. We adapt. The specimen also shows evidence of intentional genetic manipulation, Draz continued, ignoring her. Multiple foreign biological materials have been introduced to program immune responses. Those are called vaccines, 4 eyes, pretty basic medical tech. Commander Vex leaned forward, suddenly more interested. You deliberately modify your own biology to combat disease? Of course. Don't you? The aliens exchanged another look. This one clearly significant. Most species await natural evolutionary processes or implement technological solutions, Vex explained. Deliberate self-modification is unusual. Wait until you hear about our cosmetic surgery, Maya muttered. She noticed that while they were distracted with their findings, the energy fluctuations in the barrier increased whenever Draz accessed his control panel. Science Officer Draz moved to another device. EU. The next assessment evaluates cognitive processing and problem-solving capabilities. A portion of the wall transformed into what appeared to be a display screen. Complex patterns began forming, shifting and changing in what Maya recognized as some kind of intelligence test. Really? Alien IQ tests? This is what my tax dollars are funding? She squinted at the patterns. You want me to find the next shape in the sequence, right? Correct. This will help us. It's the hexagonal one with the internal spiral, Maya interrupted, and the next would be a dodecahedron with a double spiral. The pattern is increasing geometric complexity with corresponding internal structure complexity. Both aliens stared at her. What? I scored pretty high on the ASVAB. Plus, these patterns are similar to neurological mapping sequences we use in trauma assessment. Commander Vex turned to Draz. Adjust to difficulty level 8. The patterns changed, becoming vastly more complex. Maya studied them for nearly a minute. This one's trickier, but I think it's about wave propagation through different mediums. The answer is the fourth configuration. She smiled sweetly. Unless you're trying to trick me with a false pattern recognition test, in which case there is no correct answer. Commander Vex's mandibles clicked rapidly. Impressive. Most species require technological assistance for level 8 analytics. Most species probably aren't as paranoid as humans, Maya replied. We see patterns everywhere. It's how we survived predators for millennia. Sometimes those patterns are real, sometimes they're not. The trick is knowing which is which. As the aliens processed this information, Maya took stock of her situation again. The restraints had a slight give to them, not enough to break free, but enough to potentially work with. And each time Draz accessed his control panel, the energy barrier fluctuated in a specific section near the edge. The final preliminary test evaluates stress response, Commander Vex announced. Oh, I'm already stressed. Thank you very much, Maya said. Being kidnapped by giant space bugs tends to do that. Ignoring her comment, Draz activated another device. This one emitted a high-pitched tone that immediately set Maya's teeth on edge. The auditory stimulus will gradually increase in intensity, Draz explained. We will monitor your physiological responses. You know what this reminds me of? Maya raised her voice as the tone grew louder. The time our chopper lost hydraulics over Kandahar. The warning alarm sounded exactly like this right before we crashed into a mountainside. She smiled grimly. I was the only survivor. I had to splint my own broken leg and hike 8 miles to the nearest outpost. The tone abruptly stopped. You survived a catastrophic aerial vehicle failure and self-treated significant injuries, Commander Vex asked, sounding skeptical. Tuesday in Afghanistan. Maya shrugged. The Taliban doesn't take breaks, so neither do we. Science Officer Draz was frantically taking notes. Commander, these accounts suggest human resilience exceeds our preliminary models. If accurate, their species rating may require adjustment. If accurate, Vex repeated, studying Maya with new intensity. The specimen may be attempting to influence our assessment through exaggeration. Hey, if you don't believe me, you can check my medical file. I've got a titanium rod in my right femur to prove it. Maya fixed her gaze directly on Commander Vex. But here's something to consider while you're deciding if I'm lying. I haven't started fighting back yet. Commander Vex leaned toward Science Officer Draz, lowering his voice. Increase security protocols. I don't like the specimen's confidence. Is that fear I detect, Commander? Maya called out, her hearing sharper than they'd anticipated. First rule of battlefield medicine. Prey animals get nervous before they run. Your exoskeleton might be giving you protection, but your body language reads like an open book. Vex straightened, mandibles clicking in annoyance. We are not prey animals, Lieutenant Patel. The Zarn evolved as apex predators on our homeworld. Funny thing about apex predators, Maya replied, casually testing the give in her restraints again. They rarely develop advanced technology because they never needed to. Doesn't sell. The species that get creative are the ones that had to outsmart the big guys. Guessing you had some help with your tech. Draz's 4 eyes blinked rapidly in what appeared to be alarm. Commander, the human is displaying unexpected xenoanthropological knowledge. Oh, please. Maya rolled her eyes. It's basic evolutionary theory plus common sense. When you've patched up soldiers from 30 different countries, you learn something about how similar we all are despite our differences. I'm guessing species development follows similar patterns. Commander Vex turned away from the containment cell, gesturing for Draz to follow. They moved several paces away, apparently believing their conversation would be private. Maya closed her eyes, focusing her hearing. 3 years of working in chaotic combat environments had taught her to filter sound with extraordinary precision. She could hear a whispered call for help amid exploding shells. Alien murmurs weren't much harder. The specimen is more problematic than anticipated, Vex hissed. Prepare the memory suppression protocol and advanced restraint system. But Commander, Draz protested, our data collection is not complete. We can continue after ensuring proper containment. This human's psychological profile suggests resourcefulness beyond our initial assessment. At minimum, We should conduct the adrenal response test. The council specifically requested stress hormone metrics for the report. Maya opened her eyes. Memory suppression and adrenal response testing? That sounded decidedly unpleasant. Time to accelerate her plans. The aliens returned to the observation position. Draz manipulated his control panel, and a new device descended from the ceiling of Maya's cell. This will measure your species' hormonal stress response, Draz explained. The stimulus is calibrated to induce fear without causing permanent psychological damage. That's thoughtful, Maya replied dryly. Quick medical question before we start. What's the Zarn equivalent of the vagus nerve? The question caught both aliens off guard. Excuse me? Commander Vex tilted his head. The vagus nerve. In humans, it's a cranial nerve that regulates several autonomic functions. I'm curious about Zarn physiology. Professional interest. Science Officer Draz seemed eager to display his knowledge. The Zarn possess a ganglion cluster at the junction of the cephalic and thoracic segments. It serves similar regulatory functions for our autonomic systems. Fascinating. Vulnerable to pressure? Of course not. Vex interjected sharply. Our exoskeletons provide superior protection for all vital neural pathways, except at the junction points, I imagine, Maya mused. Flexibility requires compromise in structural integrity. Commander Vex narrowed his compound eyes. Science Officer, proceed with the test. The specimen is attempting to distract us. You caught me, Maya grinned. Just making conversation while I count the guards. Guards? Draz looked confused. The 4 security personnel stationed in the corridor beyond that doorway. Maya nodded toward the entrance she could partially see from her position. 2 armed with what looked like energy weapons. 2 with restraint devices. Standard perimeter security for a high-value asset. Commander Vex stiffened. How could you possibly? Reflections in your eye facets. They're quite mirror-like when the light hits them right. Plus the slight head movements you make when acknowledging their status reports. Military habits are universal, it seems. The revelation visibly unsettled the aliens. Maya could almost feel their recalculation of her threat assessment. Good. Uncertainty created opportunities. Draz activated the adrenal response device. Bantisav. A holographic image formed above Maya's head, a startlingly realistic projection of what appeared to be a human child in distress. Help me. Please. The projection sobbed. I'm hurt. Maya's heart rate spiked involuntarily, but her expression hardened. Psychological warfare using child distress simulations? That's low even for kidnappers. We merely project stimuli that typically trigger protective responses in social species, Draz explained, monitoring her vital signs. Your heart rate has increased by 22%. Yeah, because I'm getting angry. Not scared, Maya shot back. There's a difference. Fear makes you freeze, anger makes you act. The projection changed, now showing what appeared to be a severely wounded soldier calling her name. Lieutenant Patel. I need a medic. I'm bleeding out. Maya closed her eyes. Amateurs. I've watched friends die while I was elbow deep in someone else's chest cavity. You think a hologram is going to break me? When she opened her eyes again, her gaze was cold and focused. You're making a critical error, Commander Vex. On Earth, we have a saying, the most dangerous animal is a wounded one. By trying to stress test me, you're actually priming my combat responses, Commander Vex signaled, and the projection disappeared. Enough. The specimen's adrenal response is unusual. Rather than fear-based paralysis, it demonstrates anger-directed focus. Note this in the species profile, Science Officer. Already documented, Commander. The implications for the threat assessment are significant. I'm right here. Still, Maya reminded them, and getting increasingly impatient with being called the specimen. Prepare the memory suppression protocol, Vex ordered. We have sufficient preliminary data. As Draz moved to a new control panel, Maya noticed the energy barrier fluctuate again. This time, she caught the pattern. The field weakened momentarily when power was diverted to activate new systems. Physics was physics, apparently, even on an alien ship. Before you scramble my brain, Maya said quickly, There's something you should know about human physiology that might affect your procedure. Both aliens paused, turning toward her. Human neural pathways are uniquely susceptible to electromagnetic interference, she improvised. It's why we've developed specific medical countermeasures for certain types of brain trauma. Science officer Draz couldn't resist the bait. Explain these countermeasures. We use electromagnetic pulse therapy to reset neural activity after traumatic brain injuries. Maya was blending truth and fiction, drawing on actual medical procedures but exaggerating their application. But the timing has to be precise, or you risk amplifying the trauma instead of healing it. Fascinating. Draz moved closer to the barrier. Our scans didn't detect this neural susceptibility. Your scans also didn't detect the metal plate in my skull, Maya lied smoothly. Titanium alloy, non-reactive to standard scanning frequencies. Military medicine includes some classified implants. Commander Vex seemed skeptical. Our scanners are the most advanced in 7-star systems, and yet, here we are. Maya shrugged as much as her restraints allowed. Tell you what, check my upper right arm. There should be an anomalous reading there too. The curiosity was too much for Draz to resist. He adjusted the scanner parameters and directed a focused beam at Maya's arm. And now there is indeed an unusual subdermal signature, Draz confirmed. Commander, this could complicate the memory procedure. That's my emergency locator implant, Maya explained, continuing her fabrication. Standard for special operations medics. It activates if my vital signs show extreme stress, or if I don't check in within 24 hours. Commander Vex's posture changed immediately. You're being tracked? How else would my unit find me if I got separated during a mission? The transmitter has interplanetary range, has to, for orbital medevac coordination. She fixed Vex with a steady gaze. My guess is your ship's shields are blocking the signal for now, but any attempt to mess with my brain will trigger an automatic distress pulse. The aliens conferred urgently, their voices too low even for Maya's trained hearing. She used their distraction to work her left hand further through the restraint, dislocating her thumb with a practiced motion that caused minimal pain. An old escape artist trick taught by her grandfather, who'd worked as a magician before joining the military himself. Commander, Draz finally spoke aloud again. If the human military possesses technology capable of tracking personnel across interplanetary distances, and this significantly alters our assessment of their technological development, the Council must be informed immediately, Vex agreed. Prepare a secure transmission to the fleet. As Draz moved to a different control station, Maya saw her opportunity. The power fluctuation in the barrier would be strongest when a new system was activated. She tensed her muscles, preparing. Commander, she called out, one last thing you should probably know. Vex turned toward her impatiently. What is it? In addition to being a combat medic, I also cross-trained with our combat engineers. Maya smiled innocently. Demolitions was my specialty. As Draz initiated the communication system, Maya yanked her left hand free of the restraint. In one fluid motion, Bond, she grabbed the small emergency beacon from her uniform pocket, the one the aliens had overlooked during their initial scan, because it appeared to be simply a button on her combat uniform. With perfect timing, she flung the beacon at the weakened section of the energy barrier just as it fluctuated. The small device passed through the momentary gap and struck the control panel near Draz. The beacon wasn't actually a tracking device, it was a compact electromagnetic pulse generator designed for disabling enemy communications in the field. Small but powerful, it sent a targeted surge through the alien control systems. Alarms blared as the ship's systems went haywire. The energy barrier collapsed completely, and Maya's restraints retracted into the examination platform. Security breach. Commander Vex shouted, reaching for what appeared to be a weapon on his belt. Maya was faster. 3 years of combat medicine had taught her to move with decisive speed. She launched herself from the platform, tucked into a roll, and came up directly in front of Draz. Remember my question about the Zarn equivalent of the vagus nerve? She asked pleasantly. Before Draz could respond, Maya delivered a precise strike to the junction between his cephalic and thoracic segments. The alien crumpled instantly, all four eyes rolling back. Commander Vex fired his weapon, but Maya was already moving. She grabbed Draz's unconscious form, using him as a shield. The energy blast struck the science officer's exoskeleton with a sizzling sound. Poor tactical decision, Commander, Maya called out. Firing in a room full of sensitive equipment? Indeed, the shot had ricocheted off Draz's exoskeleton and struck another control panel, which was now sparking dangerously. The ship's lighting fluctuated, emergency symbols flashing on displays throughout the room. The door to the corridor slid open, and two security personnel rushed in, weapons raised. Maya shoved Draz's unconscious form toward them, momentarily confusing their targeting systems, and she dove behind a bank of equipment, assessing her options. The aliens had superior weaponry, but she had the advantage of chaos and a lifetime of training for exactly this kind of scenario, being outnumbered in hostile territory. One of the security personnel moved to check on Draz. Maya seized her chance, grabbing a cylindrical device from a nearby workstation and hurling it across the room. It shattered against the far wall, releasing a cloud of shimmering particles. Atmospheric contaminant detected, announced an automated system, initiating emergency ventilation protocols. Powerful suction activated near the ceiling, creating a swirling vortex of air. The security personnel looked up in confusion, giving Maya the opening she needed. She sprinted across the room, sliding beneath the energy weapon's firing arc, and delivered a precise strike to the first guard's thoracic junction. As he collapsed, she grabbed his weapon and fired at the ceiling ventilation system. The resulting explosion filled the room with smoke and debris. Using the cover, Maya engaged the second guard. The alien was stronger, but Maya was faster and had the home field advantage of being a smaller target. Humans evolved as pursuit predators, she explained conversationally as she dodged the guard's attempt to grab her. We're not the strongest or fastest, but we just don't quit. With each word, she struck vulnerable junction points on the alien's exoskeleton. The guard staggered, then collapsed. Commander Vex backed toward the door, weapon trained on her. Stand down, human. This ship is filled with Zarn personnel. You cannot escape. Boy, I don't need to escape the ship, Maya replied, adjusting settings on the captured weapon. I just need access to your communications array. Vex fired again, but Maya had anticipated the shot. She dove behind a console as the energy blast superheated the air where she'd been standing. The Galactic Council will classify your species as hostile if you continue this resistance, Vex warned. Funny, I was about to say the same about kidnapping our people. Maya popped up from cover and fired a precisely aimed shot not at Vex, but at the control panel beside him. The panel exploded in a shower of sparks, and emergency containment doors began closing throughout the section. Vex found himself trapped in the corridor as the door slid shut between them. Maya worked quickly, using the alien interfaces to access the ship's systems. 3 years of learning to operate unfamiliar medical equipment in crisis situations had given her an intuitive understanding of how technology typically functioned, regardless of its origin. Within minutes, she had located the communications array and begun broadcasting on all frequencies. This is Lieutenant Maya Patel, United States Army, Earth. I've been illegally detained by representatives of the Zarn Collective for non-consensual experimentation. They'd be advised that Earth considers such actions an act of war. She paused, then added, to any Galactic Council representatives monitoring this channel, I formally request asylum and a fair hearing regarding Zarn violations of sentient rights protocols. That last part was pure improvisation, but Maya figured any interstellar governance system worth its salt would have some equivalent of human rights laws. Alarms continued blaring throughout the ship. Through the viewport, Maya could see several other vessels approaching, likely Zarn reinforcements. She didn't have much time. Using the captured weapon, she sealed the main doors to the laboratory, then turned her attention to the ship's navigation system. If she couldn't get off the ship, perhaps she could change where it was going. A series of rapid thumps against the sealed door indicated the Zarn were attempting to break through. Maya worked faster, fingers flying across the alien interface. Ship system access restricted. Announced an automated voice, command authorization required. Maya glanced at the unconscious form of Science Officer Draz. She dragged him to the control panel and pressed his appendage against the authorization scanner. Command authorization accepted, the system announced. Welcome, Science Officer Draz. Show me the nearest Galactic Council outpost or neutral territory, Maya ordered. A holographic display formed, showing the local star systems. A pulsing indicator highlighted a space station approximately 2 light-years away. Perfect. Maya programmed a course, then locked it in with Draz's authorization. Initiate immediate transit. Maximum speed. The ship shuddered as its propulsion systems engaged. The pursuing Zarn vessels fell behind as the abduction ship accelerated to faster-than-light travel. Maya secured the unconscious aliens with their own restraints, then settled into what appeared to be the command chair. She had no illusions about her situation. She was still in extreme danger on a ship full of hostile aliens. But she'd improved her position significantly. Not bad for a kidnapping victim, she murmured to herself, checking the weapon's charge level. 12 hours later, the ship dropped out of FTL travel near the space station Maya had identified. It was an enormous structure, with vessels of dozens of different designs docked at various ports. The communications system activated automatically. Scheduled Zarn vessel. Identify yourself and state your business at Nexus Station Alpha. Maya leaned toward what she hoped was the pickup. This is Lieutenant Maya Patel of Earth. I've commandeered this vessel after being illegally abducted. I request emergency docking and council protection. There was a long pause before the response came. Earth? We have no record of this system in council databases. That's because the Zarn Collective has been conducting unauthorized reconnaissance and abductions in our system without registering their activities, Maya explained. I believe that violates council protocols based on their own statements. Another pause. Longer this time. Then stand by for escort and emergency docking procedures. Security personnel will meet your vessel. As the ship was guided toward a docking port, Maya prepared herself for yet another potentially hostile encounter. But she had come too far to surrender now. The ship docked with a gentle shudder. Maya positioned herself near the airlock, weapon ready but not raised, a posture any soldier would recognize as alert but not immediately threatening. The airlock cycled open to reveal a delegation of beings so varied in appearance that Maya momentarily lost her composure. Bipeds, quadrupeds, floating gas-filled sacks, and crystalline structures that seemed to shift in and out of focus. At the forefront stood a tall, vaguely humanoid figure with iridescent skin and eyes that seemed to contain galaxies. It wore elaborate robes emblazoned with symbols Maya couldn't begin to decipher. I am Arbiter Thal'Khan of the Galactic Council, the being announced in perfect English. You have caused quite a stir, Lieutenant Patel of Earth. Maya lowered her weapon slightly. Not intentionally, Arbiter. I was simply trying to stay alive and find my way home. By hijacking a Zarn research vessel, incapacitating its crew, and broadcasting an unauthorized distress call on restricted council frequencies. There was a note of what might have been amusement in the Arbiter's voice. When you put it that way, it sounds bad, Maya admitted. In my defense, they started it by kidnapping me from my planet. Arbiter Thal'Khan gestured, and the security team moved past Maya to secure the unconscious Zarn crew. The collective has filed formal charges against you for theft, assault, and interference with authorized species assessment. Authorized by whom? Maya challenged. No one on Earth consented to being assessed through abduction and experimentation. The Arbiter studied her for a long moment. A fair point. The Council grants preliminary assessment authorizations based on collective recommendations. Your presence here raises questions about their methods. I'd be happy to answer any questions about their methods, Maya offered. I experienced them firsthand and demonstrated remarkable resourcefulness in the process, Thal'Khan noted. Single-handedly overpowering a Zarn crew is unprecedented. Maya shrugged. I'm just a combat medic who wanted to go home. Perhaps that is precisely why you succeeded where others failed. The Arbiter gestured toward the station. Come. The Council will want to hear your testimony directly. And I suspect your actions today may have significant consequences for both the Zarn Collective and for Earth's future relationship with the galactic community. As Maya followed the Arbiter into the station, she couldn't help but smile slightly. She'd been kidnapped, restrained, experimented on, and nearly killed, but in the process, she'd inadvertently become humanity's first official representative to the stars. Not bad for a Tuesday by her standards, and somewhere in the back of her mind, she could already imagine the new training module that would eventually be added to military preparation. What to do if aliens kidnap you. The Patel Protocol. The Zarn Collective, meanwhile, quietly removed Earth from their list of potential research targets. Some specimens, they concluded, were simply not worth the risk.